Good afternoon, I'm Charles Lejano. This is One News Now. Critics pounced on DILG Secretary Ed Año for a controversial proposal to search for COVID-19 patients. One rights group even branded it as another iteration of Tokhang. Let's get the rest of the details from Greg Gregorio. He's reporting live from Mandaluyong. Greg, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Charles. As DILG Secretary Eduardo Año steered the hornet's nest when he ordered the LGUs and the police to search for COVID-19 patients house to house. The plan is to transfer patients who are self-isolating in less than ideal conditions to designated quarantine facilities. LGUs, though, like the city of San Juan, are reluctant to run the program without a written directive. This is how an isolation bed for mild and asymptomatic patients should look like. This is just one of San Juan City's 3 facilities, which house 197 beds. Mayor Francis Zamora says they're enough to cater to COVID patients who are quarantined at home, in case they have to be transferred. The local chief executive is aware of Interior Secretary Año's house-to-house search order, but he says he can't follow it yet.
I haven't seen any official document also at this point. No? Ngunit kung sakaling kailangan gawin yan, of course, we will always be within the bounds of law.
Año's announcement also drew the public's ire.
Mag-isa lang. Tapos asymptomatic, pwede naman sa bahay kung may sariling kwarto at saka banyo.
Hindi naman pwede yung ganun. Ako mas gusto ko sa bahay.
Human rights group Karapatan fears that the proposed method might lead to a Tokhang-style human rights violation with PNP at the helm. But DILG spokesperson Jonathan Malaya was quick to douse the flames. He clarified that local governments will lead the program and that no arrests will be made.
So yung mga COVID positive, papakiusapan lang natin yung mga yan. Kung hindi sila susunod, we will have to bring them forcibly to the COVID Ligtas Center.
The PNP is also on the same page as Malaya and tells the public that they will be working with local health officials on this matter.
Actually, the PNP will just be there to ensure that there will be order. But insofar as those who will really come into the house and then interview or probably talk to those patients, we leave it to the health workers.
Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara says Año's proposal wasn't brought up in the IATF meetings, nor was he informed about it. He says, however, that there's legal basis for the transfer of patients. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere agrees that home quarantine should only be allowed under strict protocols.
Local officials can recommend to the family na ililipat na lang yung pasyente para hindi na lang ba makapanghawa pa dun sa ibang miyembro ng pamilya.
For home quarantine to be effective, certain conditions must be met, such as separate room and toilet for the patient and constant monitoring by local authorities. Charles, the DOH emphasizes satisfying all these protocols and home isolation setups because if patients are allowed to complete their quarantine in less than ideal conditions, then this could possibly contribute to the rise of COVID-19 cases in the country. Charles?
Thanks for that, Greg. That was Greg Gregorio reporting live from Mandaluyong. Some lawmakers have expressed concern on the plan to do house-to-house searches for COVID-19 patients. Senator Franklin Drilon says the move is akin to the administration's anti-narcotics campaign, dubbed Oplan Tokhang, citing possible rights violations.
Infringes on the right of the people under our Bill of Rights to secure in their houses against unreasonable searches and seizures.
For Senator Joel Villanueva, it would be better for healthcare workers to take the lead instead of police officers. Senate President Tito Soto, meanwhile, sees no problem with the initiative, as long as it's within the bounds of the law. Public Works Secretary and isolation czar Mark Villar has to isolate himself after testing positive for COVID-19. On the other hand, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana and presidential spokesperson Harry Roque both tested negative for the virus. Lorenzana was tested after his senior military aide, who was with him in Jolo, Sulu, turned out positive for COVID-19. Meanwhile, Roque said he took the RT-PCR drive-thru test in Taguig a day before Villar announced that he had contracted the virus. Top diplomats from the Philippines and China agreed to address the West Philippine Sea dispute through friendly consultations. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin met virtually with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the Chinese officials' request. In a statement, Locsin said both sides agreed that territorial issues are not the sum total of the country's bilateral relationship with China. The DFA chief said cooperation and continued dialogue were the best strategies to address maritime issues with China moving forward. But for Tindoman hit of political think tank Strat-based ADR Institute, the Philippines should be more assertive of its landmark victory against China back in 2016 at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. Manhit added that the country should internationalize the West Philippine Sea issue and bring it before the United Nations.
It's actually our own government that has orphaned us in this case. And it took some of our neighbors to stand up on it. And you'll be surprised that groups like Japan and Korea are making stronger stands also. So this is beyond really US-China issue. This has become a regional issue on the need for a rule-based international system. Maybe it's time for the Philippines to look at strategic alliances.
We'll pause for a quick break. One News Now. We'll be right back. This is One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. President Duterte will announce later tonight the fate of Metro Manila as the general community quarantine ends today. His cabinet remains mum on how the chief executive will decide. Recall that a number of provinces appealed for their area's quarantine status. In Tuesday's briefing, spokesman Harry Roque said the IATF did not discuss placing the National Capital Region under modified GCQ. COVID-19 cases in the country continue to rise. The Health Department reported almost 1,400 new infections overnight, bringing total confirmed cases to almost 59,000 as of today. 11 more Filipinos died of the SARS-like disease, and so far, over 1,600 COVID-related deaths have been recorded in the country. But recovery figures are also rising as 517 more Filipinos have gotten better overnight, for a total of almost 21,000 recoveries so far. And the Health Department is expanding its COVID-19 testing coverage, adding more subgroups into testing. Subgroup G includes residents in areas with clustering of cases. Subgroup H, meanwhile, covers workers in the tourism sector. Workers in manufacturing companies and public service providers are part of Subgroup I. Subgroup J consists of economy workers.
Gusto natin, kapag slowly binubuksan natin ang ekonomiya, merong safeguard ang mga empleyado at mga businesses na alam nila na pwede silang i-test para masigurado rin naman ng mga kliyente nila na walang infeksyon na nangyayari doon sa kanilang establishment. So this has been signed already by the Secretary, and mag-aantay lang tayo na manumberan. Siguro 1 to 2 days, it will already be posted and we can already implement.
And after claiming that the Philippines has flattened the curve since April, Health Secretary Francisco Duque quickly issued a clarification. He says the country has bent the curve in April, but that increase in cases continues due to the expanded testing and the easing of quarantine restrictions. Today is the last day of enrollment in public schools. For details, Marian Enriquez reports to us live from Mandaluyong. Marian, how was the situation at the schools today? Are they good to go?
Yes, Charles, earlier today, we saw a number of parents beating the deadline and filling out forms to enroll their children. As early as 7 a.m., Rizal High School in Pasig City started accommodating parents. Some of them explained that it took them time to finally decide to enroll their children amid the pandemic. According to Principal Gilbert Inocencio, they have recorded around 11,000 enrollees as of Tuesday, slightly higher than last year's 10,000 student population. Apart from private school transferees, Inocencio says the Pasig LGU's commitment to provide students with gadgets might have been a factor in the increase. Rizal High School has been preparing self-learning modules, which are set to be distributed by the first week of August. This will be used while awaiting the delivery of about 138,000 gadgets from the LGU. Undersecretary Nepo Malaluan says the DepEd is confident that the 80% enrollment turnout target will be met. The agency is now focused on printing out modules for distance learning. Charles, Undersecretary Nepo Malaluan notes that under existing rules, late enrollment will still be allowed. Charles.
Thanks for that, Marian Enriquez, reporting live from Mandaluyong. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis, and you can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.